awaiting the DOJ's next move after a judge appointed a special master to review the documents seized from former President Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate. Our next guest says the department should appeal that decision, and here to tell us why, former Attorney General Bill Barr. He is the author of the book One Damn Thing After Another, which gets high praise indeed.
Morning, sir.
Morning.
You know, even over, it's one thing that is interesting about all of this, the special master gets announced, the leaks from this, like it's just constant, and you have to wonder what's going on there. While all the investigation has to continue, the leaks to the Washington Post or the New York Times, almost every morning you can wake up to one.
That's right. I mean, that's one of the problems of the Department of Justice, and there are people with agendas in the department, and there's just been increase in leaking, you know, geometrically over the years. There was tremendous leaking when I was AG, and it's very hard to stop. But you also don't know how much of that is really people who know what's going on, and how much of that will prove accurate at the end of the day.
Hard to say, but you can influence public opinion, though,
Correct.
when you deliver a leak, as we have seen for the past 6 years.
Right.
Marco Rubio was on Fox and Friends earlier today. He's part of the 8 members of Congress who are entitled to the special intel briefings. Right. He said this has never come up before. And you were making the case yesterday with Martha about getting, you know, a special assignment, an arbiter to come in and look independently at this material, sort out what's relevant, sort out what's not. I understand your argument. You're arguing against a special master. And I get it if you want to go in and take this amount of classified material, but if you're also going and taking all this other stuff about stuff that's not relevant, it might be appropriate to bring in a special master and discern what is relevant and what is not. What's wrong with that?
Well, let's look at the different categories of documents. Attorney-client privilege documents. Everyone agrees that those should be returned to the president. It wasn't necessarily bad to pick them up because you don't go into someone's house and look document by document. You take what you think is going to be responsive, and then you sort it out through a taint team. No one disputes that that goes back, okay? The classified stuff are government documents, and they go to the government. There is no scenario legally under which the president gets to keep the government documents, whether it's classified or unclassified. If it deals with government stuff and it's government, it goes back to the government.
I grant you that based on
so the only other thing, the only things would be, you know, personal items and clearly personal stuff. The reason that was included to be seized, the issue here is not who ends up with it. The question is, could they have seized it? They could seize it, and they can keep it if it's evidence of the way the documents, the classified documents and the government documents were stored. So if you find very sensitive documents in Trump's desk along with his passports, that ties Trump to those documents. The passports are things that the government are, you know, they're personal stuff to Trump. But the fact that they're found with the classified documents is evidentiary, and the government decides whether that's relevant. Eventually, he'll get that stuff back. The problem I have with the special master is what she's done on what's called executive privilege documents. And she didn't address the only question that's in dispute, which is, can the former president have standing to say that the investigators don't even get to look at the documents, the classified documents that he wrongfully had at Mar-a-Lago? And that's the only question. And she dodges it. And then she says that she's bringing in a special master to look at whether stuff is executive privilege or not. That's not where the dispute is. I mean, if the government came today and said, we'll stipulate that everything that's deliberative there, whether it's classified or not, would ordinarily be subject to executive privilege, it begs the question. That's not what the issue is. That's why I think it was that opinion was a mistake.
So you think it'll be appealed and overruled? Is the
I hope it's appealed.
You believe it?
Yeah.
Do you have a view on how it ends?
Yeah, I think, you know, as I've said all along, there are two questions. Will the government be able to make out a technical case? Will they have evidence by which that they could indict somebody on, including him? And that's the first question, and I think they're getting very close to that point, frankly. But I think at the end of the day, there's another question is, do you indict a former president? What will that do to the country? What kind of precedent will that set? Will the people really understand that this is not, you know, failing to return a library book, that this was serious? And so you have to worry about those things. And I hope that those kinds of factors will incline the administration not to indict him, because I don't want to see him indicted as a former president. But I also think they'll be under a lot of pressure to indict him. Because, one question is, look, if anyone else would have gotten indicted, why not indict him?
There's more to come on this, and I hope you come back about it because we got a lot more questions about it. But can I make a 180-degree turn here?
Sure.
Because you got a piece today in the Wall Street Journal that really goes to the investing of billions, if not trillions of dollars, right? The headline is ESG can't square with fiduciary duty. ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. And there are big investment firms that take money in 401ks and they put it into companies that they believe are working for the social good. Let's characterize it that way.
Right.
You point out that they also invest in communist China. So how do we square this right now in the investment world? What's the argument you're making?
Well, it goes beyond the investment world. And the argument I'm making is that this is a tremendous concentration of wealth that is using it in an abusive way. Abusive and circumventing the whole democratic process. When little investors go out and buy ETFs, funds, and other things, as you say, the ownership is technically in the hands of mainly of three big companies, BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street, and some others, but those are the big three. And technically, these people own a high percentage of stock in these companies, and they're dictating to the companies policies like energy policy and things like that. So when they tell a big company, stop producing oil, or we're going to vote against you, essentially. That's setting national policy, and they're using other people's money to throw their weight around.
Can you stop this or change this or just bring attention to it?
Well, one thing, as the article says, there are some legal doctrines that can be used, such as this is a breach of fiduciary duty. They're supposed to be worried about the economic benefit to the actual beneficial owner.
That is their initial responsibility.
Right. That's their only responsibility, okay? And they're just pursuing their political preferences and using other people's money to have the weight to do it. And there are legal attacks that can be made. There's also the possibility of companies emerging that just focus on what they should be focused on, which is return to the owner. I think we have to look at this politically, because this means a handful of companies can decide our energy policy, our equity policy, and stuff like that, just by going and hammering the big companies over the head and saying, we own 10% of your company and we're going to throw you out.
It's an important issue.
Yeah.
It affects everyone out there
Yeah,
in the country.
it
Big
does.
issue. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Bill Barr, nice to see you again.
Good to see you.